Hello, on this episode of The Average Tabletop Gamers, I'm going to be continuing my look into my Death Guard army, and I'm going to explore the Plagueburst Crawler. Hello and welcome back. So it's continuation of my Death Guard army blog for Warhammer 40,000. So just to recap, of course, if you've not seen the previous episodes, so in episode 1 of this blog series, I assembled everything I had for the Death Guard army, all the individual bits and bobs that I'd accrued from various sources. We looked at what I had, kind of had some initial thoughts about the army. The second episode, I built up my first few squads of Plague Marines and got those painted. Episode 3, of course, I put together the few little bits I needed to round out and make an actual 4-circuit field on the table, and I played my first couple of games. So you remember, I suffered a massive defeat to Lee's Genestealer cult. However, I did then redeem myself with a win against Huss's Blood Angels. So now I'm looking at expanding the army further. So the thing I decided was I wanted some heavy support, and heavy support for the Death Guard, there's a few different options. The one that I chose, because I had the model sitting here ready to build, was the Plagueburst Crawler. Now I actually built the model off camera, and I've done the painting off camera, so it is actually sitting here all ready, built and painted. So as you can see, I've built my Plagueburst Crawler with the options of the Plague Spitters, and on the front I've added the Rot Hill volley gun. Other than that, it's fairly standard in terms of, I've not done any conversions. The kit is built as it was, straight off the sprues. So the model itself, super easy to build, really nice to build. As you'd expect, these GW plastic kits go together really easy. There was a little bit of tenderness in the sponsons, just because it's quite a small area of contact to mount them on. But I think once they were on and the glue had some time to go off and set properly, it was fine. As with all of these Chaos vehicles and Nurgle vehicles, these little spikes up on the top, I've already knocked at least one of them off. There's a couple being bent. Obviously it doesn't really ruin the aesthetic once it's painted. However, like now that it's been painted, but now it has been painted, I'll be very careful not to knock this off, because I'll have to go back and do some touch-ups. So for the paint job of this, I wanted to go quite quick and easy. With the Death Guard stuff, I'm trying to get it look like it's inconsistent paintwork. It's a bit scrappy, a bit rotten, a bit weathered. So with that in mind, what I did is I started off just with a undercoat of black primer. I then gave it a liberal coat of fur brown, so I wasn't too bothered about covering up all the black primer. So I was shooting from angles, trying to leave a little bit of the black showing through, to give some actual depth of tone. So yeah, army paint a fur brown. I went into like a heavy dry brush of the Death Guard green paint, and then I started using some, I think it was Vallejo dark sand, and some P3, I think it's bleached, it's like a P3 bleached bone, or any kind of white, to lighten that down, just to get the dry brushing over the top, to give it a kind of a yellowish tinge to the dry brush. That was then given a liberal coat of Agrax Earthshade, again just to really give it a dirty wash on it. The kind of brass sections is my kind of normal formula for brass that I'm using for my Death Guard now, which is Retributor armor, and then just really heavily washed with Nuln oil. And that was pretty much it, with the exception of a few of the barrels and things like that, which again was just done with lead belcher. So all done pretty much with traditional acrylic paint on this one. I did use some, I think it was Sterling mud. I'll check that one and make sure I put a note up here. Just some of the Citadel texture paint just on the tracks to make it look a bit muddy and dirty. But I say that was kind of probably a couple of hours of paint work needed for that, and that's all it really needs, because there's not a lot of detail on there. It's more about bringing out the character of all the little nodules, the little pock marks all the little scratches and dents. It's more about bringing that all out to date with dry brushing and washes. I've had the Plagueburst Crawler now in a few battles, quite a few games, and it's one of my favourite bits of kit, honestly, for the Death Guard. To the point now where I think it's actually starting to strike a little bit of fear into the heart of my opponents whenever I put it on the table. So its standard main weapon is the heavy mortar, the plague mortar, and I've chosen the option to put the plague spitters on and the rot hail volley gun, which are kind of the switch up options from the entropy cannons, and I think it's the slugger. To be honest though, that rot hail volley gun and those plague spitters have barely been used in combat. The advantage of the heavy mortar on the Plagueburst Crawler is it's indirect. So what I tend to do with this is just hide it off the back somewhere and just lob shots in towards my enemy, and make them come to it. And if they do get close enough where, you know, that I'm starting to get a bit worried, that's when those weapons can come into their own. And you know, the plague spitters are great. Essentially, it's a 12-inch flamer. Strength 6. It's -1. I think it's -1 AP, but obviously because it's a flamer, of course it automatically hits. So assault D6 automatic hits is really good for, again, thinning down any enemy that's trying to get towards the Plagueburst to do some damage to it. The Rot Hail Volley Gun, I think it's a 36-inch range, rapid fire 3, strength 6 weapon. Again, I think it's -1 and -2 AP. Really good again for going against things like Space Marines. But as I say, I've used that gun once in the games, and that's only because I was trying to basically really pour fire down on some Marines that got a bit too close to us, and so I moved it up just to put some extra shots in on it. However, say the thing that you want this for is the heavy mortar. So the heavy mortar, indirect fire, heavy D6, strength 8, blast template. I think it's -2 AP, 2 damage characteristic. So it's doing a lot of damage when it hits. And I've inflicted some heavy casualties with this already in the game, which is why I love it, because it just sits at the back. As someone who used to be an Imperial Guard player, and maybe an Imperial Guard player in the future, who knows, but someone who used to be an Imperial Guard player, one of my favourite things was to have armour, have artillery sitting at the back, just lobbing shells forward, and this kind of gives me that same, that same buzz of doing the same thing. And again, it forces the opponents to actually dedicate some of their troops to coming to try and stop this. So whether that means that deep striking at the back of your lines to deal with that, or having to try and get round the back of your lines to deal with it with other types of troops, it's a worry for them. I'm not moving towards them, they're having to come towards me, and again, with this type of vehicle, this type of armour, that's what you want. So what else about the Plagueburst? It's really nice. I mean, it's got a 5+ invulnerable save, which is always nice, especially again, as I say, because it becomes a bit of a target in the game. It's got the Nurgle rules of disgustingly resilient, so that is where you always take 1 off the damage characteristic, obviously rounding to 1, or to a minimum of 1 I should say. And it's got the Contagions of Nurgle. Now I've only just realised this, I didn't realise it had Contagions of Nurgle previously, but again, that's probably because no one's ever really got close enough for me to have to worry about that zone of contagion around it. So if you're not aware, Contagion of Nurgle is, depending on the battle round you're in, there's a zone around the unit, and anybody in that zone suffers -1 to their toughness. So again, if anyone does get within that 12-inch range of those Plague Spitters, by the time this time it's probably turn 3, 4, they're probably going to be -1 toughness, and you're then hitting them with those weapons. So in summary, having one of these in your army if you're Death Guard, I think, is a must. It's 9 power, so the kind of size games we've been playing, 25 to 30 power games, it's harder to justify putting that in. When we get to the bigger games, definitely it's always included. Like any 50 power game, that'll get included. Will I think about getting more of them? So would I think about getting a second or even a third? I'm not sure. I might get a second and just go for a different weapon loadout with the sponsons, just to give me the options for different opponents. as I say, I've never really used the sponsons in the front mount as much, but who's to say in the future I won't need them. So I might invest in a second Plagueburst, but that'll be way in the future. They've got more than enough backed up with the Death Guard army to work on right now to be worrying about an extra one of these. So that's about all I can really say about the Plagueburst Crawler, other than, as I say, if you can get your hands on one, you're a Death Guard player, I would thoroughly recommend it. It's a must, in my opinion, for a Death Guard army. You know, it's got some stopping power. It makes your opponents think about how they're going to deal with it, and anything where you control their battle plan a little bit, those are going to be work in your favour. So yeah, do it. Go out and get one. So what's next for the Death Guard for me? So I think next I want to look at getting some cheaper troops on the table. So the games I'm playing so far, I'm using my squads of Death Guard, my squads of Plague Marines, but they're expensive. You know, you don't get a lot of them on the table, and in games where you're trying to season hold objectives, it's quite easy for a little 5 or 6 man squad just get obliterated, or by the time they get to the objective, they've had their numbers dwindled. So what I want to do is maybe look at the Poxwalkers next. I think the Poxwalkers, I'll get a lot on the table for the power rating that they are, and they're quite resilient in terms of the rules around them. So next project will be Poxwalkers, so that will be in the next video, so hope you'll come back for that. And until the next time, remember to give us a like, a share and a subscribe. Tell your friends about this. If you're a Death Guard player, if you want to be a Death Guard player, go back and watch the rest of the blog, and remember, stick around and watch the rest of it as I develop the rest of my Death Guard army. So until then, we'll see you later.